So what if I told you that being good with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea that financial success isn't really about what you know, it's all about how you behave. You know, we're all taught that finance is supposed to be about spreadsheets and formulas, right? Like it's this clean, logical science. But the reality is, our financial lives are usually a complete mess. And why is that? It's because the clean, perfect logic of a spreadsheet just completely ignores the chaotic reality of being a human. Because think about it, the most important financial decisions you'll ever make, they're not happening on a calculator. They're conversations, and often they're really emotional ones, totally shaped by ego, by fear, and our own personal history. The math part? That's the easy bit. It's 2 + 2 = 4 stuff. It's our own messy human minds that make everything so complicated. And that brings us to this single idea from Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money, which is really the key to everything. Financial success is not so much about how much you know, but how you behave. See, you don't need a PhD in finance. What you really need is self-control. Okay, so where does that behavior even come from? Well, it's basically encoded in us, kind of like a financial DNA. Our personal experiences with money, they don't just teach us a few lessons, they actually form the entire lens through which we see the financial world. Just think about this for a second. If you were born in the 70s, you grew up watching the stock market just explode. So of course you'd be an optimist. But if you were born back in the 50s, you saw markets go absolutely nowhere for years. It's completely logical that you'd be a little skeptical. Neither of those views is wrong. They're just shaped by completely different realities. And this is exactly why we can look at someone else's financial choices and think, wow, they are completely crazy. But here's the thing, we're only seeing it through our lens. From their point of view, given their own unique history and the information they had, their decisions probably made perfect sense. As the book says, no one is crazy. And then you have these invisible forces at play, luck and its identical twin, risk. I mean, look at Bill Gates. Obviously a genius, but he also had a 1 in a million dose of pure luck. He went to the only high school on planet Earth with a computer in 1968. Now, his friend Ken Evans was just as brilliant, and he was totally destined for success right alongside Gates. But he was hit with a 1 in a million dose of risk, a fatal mountaineering accident before he even graduated. Luck and risk, they are 2 sides of the very same coin, and you have to respect both. So if our behavior is shaped so much by our past, how in the world do we build wealth for the future? Well, it really comes down to understanding 2 super powerful and honestly kind of counterintuitive forces, time and something called tails. First up, compounding. Now, we've all heard this term, but our brains are just not built to really grasp its power. It's just your money making money, which then turns around and makes even more money. It's like a tiny snowball that if you just give it enough time, becomes a totally unstoppable avalanche. Warren Buffett is a phenomenal investor, no question. But his real superpower isn't just his skill, it's time. The guy started investing when he was 10 years old. Now get this, if he'd started at age 30 like a normal person and still got his legendary returns, his net worth today would be about $12 million. Instead, it's over $84 billion. That jaw-dropping difference, that's not skill. That's the pure magic of 2 extra decades of compounding. Now, for a little perspective, investor Jim Simons actually achieved even higher annual returns than Buffett, but he started late, at age 50. Had he started at 10, like Buffett did, his theoretical net worth would be this number. A number so ridiculously large, it's basically meaningless. That, right there, is the absolutely explosive power of time. The second secret to wealth is all about understanding tail events. In a lot of things in life, a tiny number of events are responsible for the vast majority of the results. What this means is you don't have to be right all the time. You just have to be right big a few times. This applies directly to Buffett's own portfolio. Out of the roughly 500 stocks he's owned over his career, just a handful, maybe 10 of them, account for pretty much all of his success. The other 490, they barely moved the needle. The few massive winners did all the heavy lifting. And once you see this pattern, you start to see it absolutely everywhere. It's the art dealer whose entire career is made by one Picasso. It's the comedian whose Netflix special is built on the 1% of jokes that actually landed after they tried thousands. Amazon's whole business is basically funded by Prime and AWS, which paid for countless failures like the Fire Phone. Tails drive everything. So if we know that time and tails are the secret sauce, how do we actually harness them? Well, it turns out market returns aren't free. you have to be willing to pay the price. And I'm not talking about fees. First, we've got to make a really crucial distinction here. Being rich is what you see, the fancy car, the big house, it's your income being spent. But true wealth, that's what you don't see. It's the money that hasn't been spent. It's the stocks and bonds quietly working for you in the background, building freedom and options. The price for building that wealth isn't a fee you pay to your broker. It's the uncertainty and the volatility you just have to live through. Think of it like this. Aiming for those high returns is like buying a brand new sports car. It comes with a high price tag of fear and doubt and volatility. Settling for safer returns, that's like buying a reliable used car, a much lower price. But trying to get those amazing high returns for free with no volatility at all, that's like trying to steal the car. And we all know that usually ends pretty badly. That uncertainty is the price of admission. So why do it? Why endure all that volatility? Why save instead of spend? What is the real ultimate dividend that money pays you? It's probably not what you think it is. The single greatest thing money can buy isn't a bigger house or a faster car. It is control over your own time. It's the freedom to wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I can do whatever I want today. That is the highest return on your investment. But there is a really dangerous trap on the path to getting that freedom. It's called the hedonic treadmill. It's that feeling when the goalposts just keep moving. You get a raise and you immediately start wanting the next one. You buy the house and now you're dreaming of an even bigger one. This endless chase for more is the absolute fastest way to destroy the very freedom you're trying to build. Which leaves us with maybe the most important question you can ever ask yourself on this whole financial journey. Forget what your neighbor has, forget what you see on social media. The real question is this: what is your enough? Because knowing that answer, that's the only way to finally step off the treadmill and actually enjoy the freedom you've worked so hard to build.